Good afternoon, Prescott, and good afternoon, everybody who's watching out there in television land, this new fad of video attached to radio. What can I say? KYCA PM, Jason Zenzaletta sitting with you on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. A little bit of rain out there, a little wet. Not too bad, and it hasn't deterred our guests from coming up the hill out of the 500-degree heat of Phoenix and up to the beautiful weather of Prescott, Arizona. So let's go ahead and get started. We've wanted everybody to know 928-541-1016. That is our phone line for today. The phones are open if you have any questions. This is a show that we've been trying to put together for some time, and we're eager to do it because what we've been talking about is something that's been on everybody's mind in Arizona for the last decade or longer, and now it's finally about to start, and you need to know everything you need to know about Interstate 17 and what's coming up. So we have here in the hot seat across from me in the studio, Annette Riley, project manager from ADOT. Annette, thanks for coming in. And Laura Douglas, communications project manager for this I-17 project. And ladies, thank you for coming up today. I'm sure it's a little bit different than the valley weather, but you can handle it, right?
Yes,
Certainly.
yes.
Okay, again, 928-541-1016. That is our phone line, but we're talking about the Interstate 17 project that's getting ready to get underway. We've been seeing some of the work taking place. So both of you tell us about this project and what it entails for those who are unsure of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Either way, go ahead. Laura, you go ahead. How about that?
Sure. So this is a project that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time, and it's very much needed in order to add capacity, reduce congestion, alleviate some of those traffic bottlenecks that we've seen. And again, so this is called the I-17 Improvement Project, and it will run from Anthem Way to Sunset Point.
Okay.
And it's really kind of a two-part project in that from Anthem Way to Black Canyon City, about 15 miles, we are going to be widening the highway, adding one lane in each direction, again, from Anthem Way to Black Canyon City.
Okay.
And then from Black Canyon City to Sunset Point, about 8 miles, we are going to be installing something new to the Arizona highway system. They're called flex lanes. And so the flex lanes, it will be 2 additional lanes installed on the southbound side, but these lanes are really fabulous because they're able to direct traffic in either the northbound or the southbound direction depending on the greatest need or a specific day of the week. So when everybody's trying to head up north from the Phoenix area on, say, a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning, those flex lanes will be open going northbound. Okay. Same going Sunday afternoon. Everybody wants to head back southbound. Those lanes will be opened up. So it will create 2 additional lanes, either northbound, 2 additional lanes going southbound. These flex lanes will always be open. So depending on the day of the week, they will always serve to move traffic. And then if there's an incident that happens, such as a crash, or we see wildfires, we see monsoon storms that could affect the roadway, those flex lanes will do just what their name suggests and allow the traffic to move in either direction depending on what's going on the roadway and what the greatest need is and how we need to move that traffic to clear that area, again, from Black Canyon City to Sunset Point.
Okay, so this is a 23-mile project, as I understand, as you say, from the top of the hill down to Anthem, basically, as far as we're concerned up here in Prescott. Annette, I have to ask the big question that I've been hit by everybody. When is this really getting started? Because we've seen surveyors, we've seen some work going on the way, but when is this really getting started, and what is it going to entail for the drivers when it does get started?
So technically, the project has started,
Okay.
i.e. the construction phase has started. So we signed the contract last year in November, and since then, so let me back up. So the project is done in a design build contract.
Okay.
So what that means is that ADOT procures a contractor who brings their final designer along with them. So ADOT prepares a conceptual plan, those alternatives you talked about earlier. We went through all that study phase. So now that the contractor is on board, they are finishing the design component, refining and finalizing it into final plans. As those are getting done, you see, the drillers out there, the surveyors, and so on, like you mentioned. So a lot of that is now towards the end of it, what we call pre-construction activities.
Okay.
Now the real hard construction, as the drivers would see it, we anticipate middle of next month, September, where you will see, cones, barriers, so on and so forth, and see some of the heavy equipment start coming in.
Okay, so when the heavy equipment starts, as you say, and we're talking about the entire 23-mile section at once, are we talking about what type of speed restrictions or speed changes are we talking about so people know what to expect?
Sure. Yes, the project is 23 miles, but the way our design builder is approaching it, they have segmented into 3 segments. So the south segment, middle, and then the north segment. So 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And of course, I'm pointing, but I think hopefully that graphic can be shown. The one that kind of showed the project overview. Yeah.
We'll bring up the map here in just a moment. So when you're talking about section 1, we're talking about Anthem up to what point?
About Coldwater or so.
Okay.
And then there's the middle segment, and I forget, from Coldwater to about
to Black Canyon? In that area?
Around that area. So I actually forgot exactly how they segmented it. For us, we segmented as 2 because it's the widening, the 1 lane widening in each direction as the south segment. But they're going to be concurrently, going back to your original question, they're going to be concurrently working certain activities along the corridor. It's not all 23 miles all at the same time. Again, you're restricted by resources, their design plans are being completed, and so on. But some activity through the corridor of the 23 mile, you will see some activity all along that segment. So it is not going to be a restriction all 23 mile all at the same time.
Okay.
So as part of the project scope, as Laura mentioned, we're widening that additional lane on the south segment from Anthem to about Coldwater, 1 lane in each direction, and then from Coldwater to Sunset Point, the 2 flex lanes that is riding on the southbound lane. All that widening requires bridges to be touched. So, so our current bridges are, existing lanes are 2 lanes. So we have about 10 bridges that we'll be widening and 2 bridges that we have to replace. So depending on that type of work, so bridge work will also be happening depending on exactly what stage of their design. And once their design plans are approved and accepted by the DOT, then the contractor is ready to go. So a lot of the work, you will see it, but what I want to clarify for all the listeners and all the audience is that it's not all 23 miles. You're going to see barrier and lane restrictions and speed reductions. But speed reduction, just for the safety, both for the public and our workers out there and inspectors out there, we will be reducing speed limits just for that safety reason, and also for those traffic, barriers to be placed closer to the lanes as we start working on the shoulders and off the shoulders.
Okay.
So we'll be reducing it to about 55 miles per hour.
Pretty much through the entire corridor, for the most part, where the work is going on, actively going.
Segment at a time as the work is approved and they are approved to go construct.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, and it seems like a massive project here. What kind of money are we talking about in terms of tax dollars that this is going to take? Because, as we've said, this is a multi-year project. This is not just making a new freeway down in the desert or anything like that. This is a massive project, especially when you're talking about 2 brand new lanes up a mountain pass. So,
right. It's in our major projects group for a reason. And so when you talk about the cost, it's well over $400 million. And the funding for that comes from a variety of sources. Governor Ducey has allocated funds for this project. The state legislature has federal funding. The Maricopa Association of Governments has contributed funds. So there's a variety of different funding sources for this. And we are finally to the point where we have all that funding and we are able to move forward with this project.
Okay. One question that I've had was, we have the funding, we have a good idea how much it's going to take, but we're talking about 3 years. And all of a sudden we're getting hit by this monster called inflation. Is this going to affect, is there a possibility that it could affect construction or the cost of the project down the road? Or do you think we've locked in enough money to make sure that we're going to come in at this point? Is there any talk about that?
Sure. So the way the contract and the bid is, we follow the both state and federal procurement process. So with that process, once the award happens and the contract is signed, everything is set. The pricing is set within it. And this particular contract actually does not account for price escalations.
Okay.
So going down the so this is the contract between the contractor and ADOT. Here's are the values of item, materials, labor. So it's already set. Only thing that would change is if ADOT, we go out there, we turn over a pavement, and what we anticipated seeing is not the case, and we actually have to do additional work, and I have to do a change order with the contractor. Now, those price escalations will be then reflected because that is an add-on work.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take our first break here on KYCA on the radio side. If you're watching on the video side, we're going to continue our conversation. For those of you listening on the radio, 928-541-1016. If you've got a question of Annette or Laura concerning the I-17 improvement project, and we're going to take a break on the radio side and be back right after this. Okay, and on the and folks who, if you're watching on the podcast, we're getting used to all of this. So just, patience, folks, patience. Okay, very quickly, Annette and Laura, there was talk at one point, we've talked about this project for many years. There's been many possibilities. And the last we had heard before the finalization was, we're going to put in an extra lane between Anthem and Coldwater. We're going to finish that completely, and then we're going to work on the mountain pass. What was the reasoning behind doing it all at once, or basically doing it, the whole thing at once?
Well, to be honest, it's extremely exciting for the DOT that we are able to do the project in one complete cohesive manner. And one of the critical factors where ADOT is able to deliver this project in a comprehensive manner is because we had applied for a federal grant, and it's called the infra grant, and it's a pretty long acronym. It's about infrastructure, rejuvenation, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And we were lucky enough, and we actually had a couple of our House and senators that really supported us in Washington, that helped alleviate, that or that helped with us with the competition, and we actually ended up with a $90 million grant from the federal highways, which made it very much possible for us to deliver as a complete comprehensive project. Having to do segment by segment project, there is inefficiencies, impact to the traveling public, because you can do only one project and then you wait for another project and another segment. So it lengthens that construction time frame, impacts the traveling public. There's numerous reasons why we wanted to do as a complete package, and we really got that grant, and that really eased our way.
Perfect. Okay, folks, we're getting ready to join the radio side again, so hang in with us here on KYCA. And we're back here on KYCA PM on the radio side. Folks, thanks for being patient with us. 928-541-1016. Annette Riley and Laura Douglas here with us from ADOT. Ladies, I can say that we look at this project, we know it's necessary, and we understand that this is going to be a very lengthy project. But also there's other things that go along with this that are not tied in with the project. Laura, you were talking to me about this, is that don't be surprised, folks, there's more coming, because there's going to be a reconstruction of the rest area at Sunset Point, but it's not tied in with this project. Is that right?
That's right. So the Sunset Point rest area is scheduled for about a 9-month renovation, which will close down that rest area to most traffic, with the exception of the commercial vehicles. Again, this is not tied to the I-17 improvement project, which ends the project limits at Sunset Point. But it is something I think that we should mention as part of, people are going to see our project and restrictions associated with it. They will also need to know about the Sunset Point rest area rehab that's coming along, and that will also occur sometime after Labor Day. I don't have a specific date for that yet, but that's something that, that rest area is used quite frequently, and we want people to be aware of that. We also want them to be aware of the temporary rest area that will be set up at Badger Springs. So while we will have this particular rest area, the Sunset Point rest area, under renovation for about, like I say, about 9 months, give or take, there will be a rest area set up, a temporary rest area set up at Badger Springs, so that people will have another option.
Okay, great. Well, so folks have to be patient. I mean, obviously, this is the big thing. And with so much traffic going through there, obviously, there could be issues. There could be problems in terms of accidents, which happen now. Obviously, little things that happen. And we just have to put up with it and bear with it until we're completely finished with the flex lanes. So it's something that people have been looking forward to. Question on the flex lanes, when they're finally finished. What amazes me is the technology on this, because it's going to be controlled, I believe you told me, from Phoenix, the gates and the control of which direction the lanes end up being. Is that right?
That's correct. I think Annette can best answer the technology side of this.
Okay.
Yep.
How does that work exactly?
So everything will be connected with fiber. This is the age of fiber and everything else. And we actually have even like a super duper broadband fiber that's been placed with this, part of it with this project, and another with the standalone project. So with those fibers, we're able to connect all the cameras, all the slew of gates, and the approach, because to manage and to control that directional traffic, we're not just going to have one gate. You're going to have a sequence of gates so that people see it, at different lengths as the lane comes out. So all of those gates, all of those cameras, we're going to have, a complete coverage, and all of that will be controlled by our traffic control center down in Phoenix. But that does not negate the fact that we'll still have manual overrides if there's like an incident, or DPS or our maintenance folks have to go in and take care of whatever item or whatever event that has occurred within that segment. They can do a manual override as well. So it is a system. It's new to Arizona. This will be the first one. But this is tried and true. Texas, Washington State, California, Florida, all of those have used this system. So it's a great tool, at least from the traffic and transportation perspective, that when you have so little footprint you can work with, you are able to maximize and serve that high need direction.
And that's something else that was that came up as part of this, in that you're going to have to engineer 2 new lanes on a project that basically blasted into the side of a mountain for 8 miles to really put this in. And this is probably one of the more ambitious projects, agree or not if you can, that ADOT has undertaken in the past several decades, to me.
It is ambitious in the sense that the terrain, the logistics of it all, because we're so far from the urban area. This is, these segments, they are, between 2 big urban areas. And so the logistics of it all, it is challenging. The terrain, extremely challenging. And then all those drop-offs. So we talked about, and Laura mentioned this, that we're adding that 2 flex lanes, 2 additional lanes, only on the southbound side. We're not touching the northbound side between Coldwater and Sunset Point. And there was an exact reason why. Because on the northbound side, it's even harsher terrain. And a lot of rock outcroppings, and it would have taken a lot more time. So there will be a lot longer impacts to the traveling public. And the terrain itself is so hard, like you talked about blasting. We have blasting on this project, but not as much if we had touched that northbound segment between that, which is just why that flex lane option became the preferred and best alternative that ADOT selected.
Okay. Now, what kind of reaction have you gotten from the public on this? Obviously, this is a project we've been talking about for a long time, and it's been something that a lot of people have said, well, there's got to be a solution to this. Okay, we have a solution. What's been the general reaction to this? I know that you've probably heard from the public over the past year or so as this has become so-called finalized, I would say. What have you heard so far?
I would say it's been overwhelmingly positive.
Okay.
You're right. This has been something that people have asked for a while. Sometimes it just takes a while to get all the funding allocated and get this into our 5-year program. But people are excited about this project because they realize that that area, once you hit Anthem, the lanes are down to 2 lanes currently, and it creates that bottleneck. And so trying to get out of the valley up north creates a real congestion problem weekly, if not daily, but especially on the weekends. People or holiday weekends. People are all trying to get out of town, and they really need that solution in terms of a roadway that offers a wider highway that will allow for more capacity and less congestion. So that's really the idea, not only with the widening, but also the flex lanes, in that they offer that flexibility to provide either northbound or southbound relief if something is going on that's not anticipated, but also just that daily use depending on what day of the week it is.
Okay. And as you said, this is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week roadway that's going to be open, the flex lanes. What kind of time to clear it? I guess you're just waiting for traffic to clear before you change directions and all that. So it's just it's a matter of timing, basically. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, to make sure that everything's out of the way and ready to go in a different direction. It's got to be amazing, and I'm sure that there's some backups to this as well. Just in case of power loss or signal loss or anything like that.
Yep. So we're still working through that final design, and exactly, based on the volume and all that, we'll still have, we're down the road where we will nail down exactly, and once we do the implementation, we will see. We're going to have tests and so on and so forth. But we do have battery backup powers, solar-powered battery backups on certain equipments, just to help with that and any kind of failure. And we are looking at, is there a redundancy for the connections and all that. And so again, all of those, safety is paramount to ADOT. Every traveling public that is using it, it's their safety is paramount.
All right. We're going to take a break on the radio side here on KYCA. We'll be back after this. Okay, and folks, thank you for joining us here on KYCA, and we're continuing. Let's do this very quickly. We'll do this on the radio side, as a matter of fact, so we'll get to that in just a moment. For those of you who are tuning in on our podcast, again, Annette Riley, Laura Douglas from ADOT, thank you for joining us today. And I guess also, was there over the years we keep hearing there were different possible routes, possibly through Bumblebee or emergency routes in other directions. Did any of those ever get taken into serious account or make any sense in any way besides what we're doing now?
Well, so although I did not work through that phase of alternative selection, one of the criteria to establish a project and to be federal funding eligible, to be eligible for federal funding, is what we call the NEPA process, right? National Environmental Policy Act, where you have to show the purpose and need. There's a purpose, there's a need, and you have vetted through all alternatives, and out of all that gamut of alternatives, that this is the best benefit, least impactful. So there's a whole slew of criteria you have to go through in completing what we call the design concept report, which is schematic plans, and then also the accompanying environmental study that has to be approved by our federal highway, federal partners, and everybody else. So, which also include public input, having public meetings, and then see what agency partners within this area. So all of that went into it. So at the end of the day, trying to build a pristine brand new road will have a lot more impact to the natural habitat, to the communities, within that area, versus already, established freeway where you are adding capacity. So, although I wasn't part of that, but based on the work that we do at ADOT, this is, we have to go through that very, very robust, analysis, and then come to that preferred alternative.
Okay, so a lot of thought put into it, obviously, and it's hard to wrap your head around this. You can understand a road widening project, but this is something different. And obviously, this is something, like we've said, this is something that people wanted. Mm-hmm. People desperately wanted, and we want from a safety aspect. We want from a first responder aspect. So it's just been interesting to see how this has suddenly come up. And when we come out of the break, I believe we're just a few minutes away from that, I want to talk about the widening project, because we're back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, we're back here on KYCA Radio. Folks, we're getting used to this, so bear with us. We're learning how all this works. Jason Zenzaletta with you here on KYCA PM. Annette Riley, Project Manager. Laura Douglas, Communication Project Manager for the I-17 Improvement Project, in studio with us. Why don't you give me the thing here? This is live radio, folks, and this is live podcasting, so hey. Okay, flash flood warning in effect for the Prescott area until 6:45 this evening. 1 to 1 3/4 inches of rain has fallen. A possible another half to 1 inch of accumulation expected out of this storm that just suddenly popped up this afternoon. Prescott, Iron Springs, Yavapai Campground, Skull Valley, Oak Knoll Village, Prescott Gateway Mall, and White Spar Campground could be affected, but that really goes for just about anybody around here, folks. If you see water in the roadway, please don't drive through it. Don't go around barricades. You know better, folks. Come on, we live in Prescott. You know better. So, okay, bear that in mind. Flash flood watch. We're in monsoon. I think we all know this by now. Okay, back to I-17, the improvement project, and where we don't have to worry about monsoons, flooding, or anything like that at this point. Let's bring up the graphic on the road widening project up here first. We've got some graphics that Laura, you sent to us. Thank you very much. We're trying to get through this. We're learning all the systems, folks, so just patience. Okay, there's when we thought about the widening project, which is from Anthem to Coldwater TI. Thank
Traffic
you.
interchange.
Yeah, traffic interchange. Okay, thank you. Engineering terms, folks. We'll get through. We'll get through this. We simply assumed that, okay, you've got plenty of room in the median. You can just throw another lane on. It's not that simple, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're looking at this and this graphic. What section of the road are we talking about here?
This is pretty much between Anthem to the Coldwater, where we are adding that additional lane on the northbound side to the 2 existing, and then same thing, 1 additional lane on the southbound side to the 2 existing. Your question was, it's a lot more complicated than just adding 1 more lane. So we have to look at terrain, right? We have to look at grading, i.e., the drainage. You just talked about the flash floods and all that. Guess what? Our freeways also get that rain, and the intensity of the rain, and based on the design speeds that we have to design and make sure that safety factors are taken into account. So a lot of that drainage, the geotechnical strata that will be supporting this pavement. So a lot of that, traffic analysis and into, where we are widening versus where the ramps, existing TI ramps, how they would tie in. And so a lot of that goes into the analysis of trying to figure out, which way we're going to be widening.
Okay, now let's go to the other graphic here, because there's some areas where the widening is going to be in a different aspect. We heard that theirs could be inside, but then this is where the road goes up the mountain, and we're talking about, as we've said, in case, folks, if you're not too sure of your directions, and believe me, coming out to Arizona for the first time, I didn't know north from south, so I understand. This is how it's going to look going up and down the mountain. And I imagine that the barriers are going to be between the existing southbound lanes and the new flex lanes are going to be very obvious and unbreachable, really.
Well, the barriers are, we have a design standard for it. Again, national standard into the height, the reinforcement, what kind of impact and what kind of deflection it's able to do. So again, we're going to be following our national and state standards into providing that. Barriers are there not just not just as a catch for an errant vehicle hitting it. We prefer nobody hits it because, depending on the angle of impact, it can have a lot of severity too. But again, this is more of a catch-all for that, high, severe, so that it doesn't have a crossover, right, head-ons, which can be the most severe type. So yes, the barriers will be designed to standards, and they will be separated from the general main line and then the two flex lanes.
Okay.
And then there'll be transition areas where you'll see the gates and so on.
Okay. So, and that's another thing we were thinking. I see in my head, and a lot of people do, there's a gate at the bottom, there's a gate at the top, but it's a lot more complex than this. At least that's the design aspect of it at this point.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, so it's going to be very obvious, and we're not going to worry about wrong way traffic, and which seems to be a problem in some areas. That should not be a problem here once the design aspects are done.
Yep. There is one component of the flex lane that we're putting in. I'm going to, again, sales pitch ADOT's motto, safety is number one for our traveling public and everybody. So not only are we going to have those sequence of gates, we also have what we call a vehicle arresting gate. So this is a humongous structure that will be built, and it will have a netting that will catch if there is an errant and a wrong way driver. So of course we're going to build the system and design the systems in such a way that that will not happen. But there are there's never there sometimes drivers can get confused and or could be under influence of and some kind or the other, and then so for those catastrophic events, just to avoid that catastrophe happening to a driver, we will have that vehicle arresting barrier that is also placed.
That is amazing, just to think about it. Well, I'm going to take a break here on the radio side. KYCA Prescott, thank you for joining us on the PM show. Let's take a quick radio break, and we'll be back after this. Okay, we're learning all this, so thank you for your patience, folks. Laura and Annette, also I think we were discussing, we want to talk very quickly. Let's bring the graphic up on the information, if you don't mind. There we go. We're going to bring this up on the radio side again as well, but this is something that's extremely important for everybody. Most of the construction seems to be happening during the nighttime. Very important for people to understand that.
This is very important, and this was something that was specifically designed with this project in terms of when the restrictions would happen, knowing that this is a highly traveled corridor. So most of our restrictions will occur in those evening to overnight hours, generally speaking 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. on the weekdays. So beginning Sunday night in some circumstances to Friday morning. But realizing that this, again, is very highly traveled, keeping I-17 free from restrictions, construction restrictions during the daytime, during the weekends, and during the holiday travel time periods, during holiday travel weekends or days. So that was critical. So I think there might be some misconceptions that, people won't be able to get to where they're going during the day or even on the weekends. When we have to take a lane for restriction, it will occur again in those hours between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay, very good. And thank you for joining us back here on KYCA PM. We're learning the transition between video and radio, so bear with us. 928-541-1016. And thanks again, Annette Riley, Laura Douglas, for coming up here from ADOT. Now, we were just discussing off air the improvement project, so let's bring that up again. This is an infographic that also you can look up on ADOT. Now, very, very quickly, first of all, website is up and running right now. So
it
let's
is.
tell everybody where we're at on that.
So this is going to be a great, it already is a great resource. It's going to be built out with more information as we enter construction and throughout the 3 years or so during construction. The website is improvingI17.com. And so I would encourage everyone to use that as a tool. We will have lots of information posted on that, as well as photos and videos. A great resource also via that website, sign up for the traffic alerts. That will be useful to everybody traveling that corridor. They are sent out weekly. Again, it's improvingI17.com/let's connect, and you can sign up for the traffic alerts. That will be very instrumental in your travels, along with always checking the 511 system, az511.gov or calling 511. That applies to the entire state highway system. So if you're traveling anywhere, we encourage people to check that, plan your trip before you go, so you know that what might be restricted or under construction or have delays. Very valuable tool.
Okay, we were discussing off air, this is for the radio folks out there, that most of your lane closures, and if you're going down to one lane, are going to be nighttime. You're trying to keep it that way as much as possible. That may happen daytime occasionally, every great once in a while when it's absolutely necessary, but the vast majority of the times the roadway should be opened. It's just going to be a little slower. Correct?
Correct. So posted speed will be reduced, as mentioned earlier, and we still don't anticipate reducing it to one lane. What you may see during the daytime is shoulder restrictions.
Okay.
So again, we are trying to commit or committed to keeping 2 lanes open during the days and weekends especially. So those restrictions of taking it down to 1 lane will occur at night.
Okay, very good.
One exception would be, blasting. We talked about the terrain, and there's blasting. Again, it is not good to have live traffic when we're doing blasting. So when the blasting does occur, which can take about an hour or so, which is the limit we provide to the contractor. So about an hour, we will do full lane closure. So both lanes in each direction will be closed for an hour when we do blasting.
But again, that's
It'll be
probably
at night.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. So also, but one thing that we have gotten used to in Arizona is during construction, regardless of the size of the construction or where it is, holidays, you tend not to have any construction out. Weekends, sometimes you don't have any construction. That's not going to be the case here. This is going to be continuous. Is that right?
Continuous in that
In terms of speed restrictions and things like that.
Well, we will have speed reductions in the construction zone, but
Right.
keeping I-17 open on the weekends is something that is part of this project.
Well, what I'm saying is that barriers are not going to come down on holidays. Speed is not going to increase on holidays. You're going to keep it a constant during this entire project. Am I correct on that?
Yes. A segment at a time.
Okay.
Segment at a time as the construction happens. Not all 23 miles all at the same time.
Gotcha. But everybody should be prepared for something within this zone all the time.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, we just wanted to make sure that people have to understand the scope of this, because we've seen major projects, obviously, especially down in Phoenix when we're talking about major freeways being constructed or repaired. This is a whole different beast here, because this is something that's going to be a constant for several years. Are we being ambitious in saying it's going to be done in 3 years, approximately, give or take? Anticipating weather problems, anything like that. Can we do it in 3 years?
Yes, absolutely. Barring unknown and again, what we say, force majeure, so unforeseen events or, governmental shutdowns, thunderstorm, earthquakes, all of those God nature. I guess government is God too.
Unplanned, unnatural event, or natural event,
Yes,
unnatural event.
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Understood.
Yeah, so that is what the contract is between the contractor and us. That's in the contract of how many days. So about 3 years.
Okay. And it's just hard to, as I said, it's hard to wrap your head around this, that you're going to see new lanes on Interstate 17, that you're going to see all of this. But let's take it just a little further. We get done with the project. As we were talking off air before the show, this is not going to extend beyond Sunset Point northward, at least not right now. Is there any talk of that in the far future? And I'm talking next decade or so. Is there any thoughts of that as the valley expands northward?
Boy, well, I know that that is definitely a question that we're going to get asked in terms of expanding it further beyond Sunset Point. The answer is really not at this point.
Okay.
A project like this requires funding, likely funding from several sources, and to extend that project northward, it would also require further environmental studies,
Right.
which also require funding. So you're talking about funding for studies and, the design and the construction. And that's, right now we have the funding to do this project. And it's 23 miles, Anthem to Sunset Point, and that's, what we are able to do right now. And we certainly hope that this is beneficial to drivers. This is something that we've wanted to improve upon for a long time. It's an area that sees a lot of bottlenecks and a lot of congestion as it is. So really, this is what we are focusing on now. This is what we have the funding for right now.
Okay. And again, let's talk about the Phoenix area. We talk about Anthem. We see Anthem growing, and we see New River growing, and even Black Canyon City is catching some of the population from the south, from the north end of Phoenix, and all of that. Are 3 lanes enough going and coming through from Black Canyon City down? As you say, we have a lot of traffic going through there, and technically, okay, you've got 4 lanes going up the mountain or down the mountain at any one time, which is a wonderful thing. Any thoughts to just the vast freeways we're seeing going north of Anthem again in the far future? Do we see that as a possibility? And it would be an easier construction, being flat desert for the most part, as we see it anyway.
Maybe, I mean,
Yeah.
it's very hard to project.
Yeah.
The design concept report, the study that we came up with these additional lanes, we used a future volume, a projected volume based on this year's volume of that year in 2019 when we finished the DCR. So all of that, so it was a 2050 horizon year that they were looking at in the analysis of it all. So we will meet the required, level of service, what we call, the capacity. But beyond that, as population grows, it's anybody's guess. And is this the place where we should put in, or should we have an alternative route after all, and kind of find that funding and find that time to do so. That's also a possibility.
Okay. Well, anything's possible. We've seen that now with the flex lanes and everything. So, folks, we're going to take our final break here on KYCA on the radio side, 928-541-1016. We're going to wrap it up after this break. Okay. There we go. Now we're good here on the podcast side. So, folks, thanks for joining us here on KYCA on the podcast digital side. And you can watch this anytime you want to. This is a great thing about this. If you want more information about it, let's go ahead and go back up to the graphic on the video side here, just to make sure that everybody understands. Again, from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., and this will be 365 days a year, 7 days a week, all the way through the project, depending on what section we're focusing on. They can expect some lane closures, or do you think that we're going to be down to 1 lane continuously overnight, like every night for 2 or 3 months, or every night for whatever, or just when it necessitates it?
Yeah, that is definitely possible as we work on. Normally in projects where we have alternative routes, we do a full closure. This is a segment, this is a corridor where we don't have good viable alternative route where we can divert traffic, which is why, us we just allow 1 lane closure. What that means is that it lengthens the the work, the amount of work they can do at a night. So yes, you can see and will probably see a segment at a time, every night closure of the same segment.
Okay, so people are going to have a little bit slower, and they've just got to be a little bit more careful, a lot more careful.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back here on KYCA PM on the radio side. If you're a little confused, so am I, but that's okay. We're learning on this brand new television type thing. I don't know, the fad. I don't think it's going to last. Radio is where it's at. Laura Douglas and Annette Riley, thank you for joining us here on KYCA. We've been excited about this show for some time because, well, many people up here, we don't have the freeways. We don't have 9-lane roads. We don't have anything like you have down in the valley. We have our interstate. And it's difficult to get down to the valley or back up, and it's not something that we do on a regular basis. So some people do. We do have some commuting down to the valley every day and all of that. But it's something that we see as a huge improvement and desperately necessary, especially when we have wrecks and other things that happen on the freeways. So I guess the question now is, this is such a huge project for ADOT, but it's not the only project. Other things are going on around the state, correct?
Oh, absolutely. There are projects going on in every corner of the state. To name another major project, if you're in the Phoenix metropolitan area, the Broadway Curve Improvement Project, where they're adding lanes and they're adding collector distributor roads. That's a project that's well underway. Again, it's part of our major projects group, as is the I-17 improvement project. Improving our state highway system, it's very important to ADOT, obviously. As more people come here, we see the growth, we see the necessity to improve our highway system and widen and expand roads. And that really contributes to the overall goals of the state. You're talking about the economy and job growth and companies moving here, and the infrastructure is necessary. And with this particular project for I-17, the infrastructure is necessary. More people are moving here. That causes congestion. People have difficulty getting up to the North Country and back down to the Phoenix metropolitan area. And so the goal, the objective, the prize in all of this is to create those added lanes so that people's commutes, whether daily, weekly, monthly, or even on holiday time, are just a little bit easier.
Okay. Well, obviously, I mean, this is a huge undertaking. Annette, we were talking about some of the other projects that you've done yourself. You were project manager, you said, for a freeway project that took place over Tempe Town Lake.
Yeah. Yes.
What happened there? What segment of the road was that?
That was the Red Mountain, the 202 Red Mountain. It was between the short stack, the 51 I-10 interchange, all the way to the 101, where and for the Valley folks here, the Tempe Marketplace area. Okay. So it is adding one more lane at that time, and then two from Scottsdale to the 101 and back, same on both sides, both eastbound and westbound side. And we had about 22 bridge widenings through, very heavily traveled urban area, and then access to the marina, all the boaters, all the events that Tempe Town Lake hosts. And I thought I was just widening bridges and roads, but next thing I know, I'm kind of managing, and coordinating on a daily basis with the marina. So I became a marina coordinator. Again, we do what we need to do to get our projects completed and have the least amount of impact to the users of our roadways.
Well, that's what we're looking at. That's why we brought you in today, because this is going to be an enormous impact to traffic, but in the end, it's going to be an incredible improvement. It's just going to take time and patience. That's the thing. That's what it seems like. Do we have the graphic back up here? Are we back on this on the video side? Okay. One more time, we want to go through this for everybody who has questions. ImprovingI17.com. That is your starting point for everything. And where are we at on that website? What can people see right now?
Well, there is information and resources there currently. There's some of the documents that we've produced, some graphics, photos and videos. But again, this is going to become so much more populated as we head into construction. And we hope to, to share a lot of the fun things along with construction in terms of the interesting things, how this particular corridor is being built and how it's being improved. But also, important information. And again, so important about the traffic alerts. Sign up for the traffic alerts so you have that. And again, that's all via that website. Check 511 before you go so you can plan your trip. Knowing full well that the schedule, we're going to start soon here in 2022, but knowing that this is a good 3-year project, so please anticipate construction during 2025. And again, as you mentioned, something like this, the necessary comes a little bit of pain in terms of, you're going to see a construction zone. You're going to see reduced speeds, but that's all part of the project. So we just ask that people, pay attention, watch for the reduced speeds, watch for workers. They need to get home just like anybody else. We don't want to lose anybody on this project. So important. Watch for the heavy equipment. Keep your eyes on the road. I know there's going to be a lot to see in terms of, this is going on here, or that's going on, or that's new. Keep your eyes on the road, obey the speed limits, just be a good driver and don't rush through that construction zone.
Right. Can I make a request on the website? Blasting videos. Hey,
They'll probably show up there too. Yes.
Yeah.
that's something we don't get to see. You
Right.
close the road.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the most popular things. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But it happens.
Yeah,
I
it may
know.
not be as exciting as the Hollywood ones, which are a lot more dramatized. So, we'll definitely be taking footage of those because we are excited as well.
Well, it's definitely it's a vast undertaking, and I don't think we've really seen a major project going through a mountain pass like this in Arizona in a very long time, where something of this scale. So we're down to the last minute. Folks, I want to thank you for joining us. Annette, Laura, we hope you'll come back later on. I know things are going to get busy. I know things are going to be crazy, but we'd like an update down the road, and we certainly thank you for coming up the hill and briefing us on this.
Yeah,
Of course.
Thank you for that opportunity. We love, connecting with people and distributing the information and make all the listeners a little engineer geek that I am. So I'm very excited about that.
And we're happy to get you out of the valley and all that heat. Okay. Folks, watch out for flash floods, and thank you for joining us here on KYCA PM. We'll be talking to you again next week. Take it easy and be careful out there.